Hi, everyone. I feel like it's been too long since we did these. So glad to be back. And welcome for everyone who's just joining us. I'm Scott with the Judy Nicholson Kidney Cancer Foundation, and I'm very excited for today's speaker. Dr. Hannan from UTSouthwestern is here to talk with us about radiation therapy. Oh, we're getting somebody's microphone here. Who is that? Yeah. Here we go. And so what if the body's own immune system could fight off cancer? And how does radiation treatment affect the patient's immune response to cancer? These have been particular areas of interest and research for Associate Professor of Radiation Oncology, Raquibul Hannan, MD. Dr. Hannan, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's really a pleasure, Scott. Thank you for inviting me.
Go ahead and you should have the ability to share your screen now.
Okay, let's give that a try.
Perfect.
Let's put it on the slide mode.
And if anyone does have questions, feel free to type them into the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of Dr. Hannan's lecture. So feel free to type them in then, or just save them and ask them at the end, but we'll be happy to get your questions answered. And without any further ado, Dr. Hannan, please take us away.
Absolutely, pleasure. Thank you, Scott, again for inviting me, and it's really my distinct pleasure and honor to talk about my research and work in terms of what we do with radiation and stereotactic radiation for the treatment of kidney cancer. Scott, you're able to see my mouse and my screen in the presentation mode, right?
Yes, sir. We're all set.
Okay, perfect. So I'll talk about stereotactic radiation first, introduce you to what it is, and then go into its application on how we are using it to improve kidney cancer outcome. And lastly, we will talk about the research topic, which is one of the fields of my research, is to use radiation as a trigger for the immune system and how we can use it to improve immunotherapy outcomes. So to introduce you to SABR, did you know that there is no such thing as a tumor that cannot be eradicated by radiation? With high enough tumor dose, all essential tumor processes can be disrupted and all tumors can be killed. There is no such thing as a radio-resistant tumor. So the main question then is, why don't we kill all cancers? And the answer to that is really collateral damage. So collateral damage is something that has plagued radiation oncology since its beginning, over 100 years. The normal tissues suffer the same fate that happens to the tumor, and the dose of radiation that kills tumor cells also affects the surrounding normal organs. And one of the answers to that you have seen in the older forms of radiation is the protracted course, the 6, 7, 8, 9-week course of radiation to reduce that damage to the normal organs, but still kill sufficient tumor cells. But how do we do this then? How do we focus the radiation? Radiation travels only on a straight path. It's like light. So how do we bend it? How do we target a tumor that is seated deeply within the body next to multiple critical organs and without hurting the organs? And the answer to that is really magic and the magic of technology. And today, that's what I will do. I will take you to the back scene of the magic and show you the tricks of how we do it. So stereotactic radiation, also known as SABR or SBRT, these are completely synonyms. You may also have heard about gamma knife or cyber knife. These are using the same technology, just different vendors, different machines. But all of this is using the stereotactic technology. And one thing to understand is that stereotactic technology is not something completely new. It just builds on our experiences before with all the other acronyms that you may have heard. You have heard about IMRT, the 3D conformal radiation, the IGRT. So all of these are technologies that when you put it together and then add more technology, then you are there to do stereotactic radiation. And I'm going to demystify each one of these terms briefly for you, okay? So starting with the conformal 3D radiation, and that's one of the things that was invented long time ago, 50 years or so ago. What it does is it brings in radiation from different directions, okay? So here, what we have, and to demonstrate all of this, I will use prostate cancer as a model. So you see an axial slice. So this is a CT scan slice. And in the image, you see the prostate in the middle, and then your hip bones on the sides. And we use color to depict the amount of radiation. So a color spectrum where blue depicts lower doses of radiation. So we call that cold. And then intermediate colors like green or yellow is higher doses of radiation, and red is the highest dose of radiation. And the goal obviously is to make the tumor red, so highest dose of radiation deposited in the tumor. But normal structures like here is rectum is contoured, which is right up against the prostate, to reduce the dose to the rectum or any other surrounding organs like the bones or the skin, right? So you can imagine that if I bring in the radiation beam from multiple directions, it will converge on the target, which is the prostate, and that will become red hot, so highest dose of radiation. And the normal structures nearby will have less dose of radiation. So that's the first technological advance. Bring in the radiation from different directions and focus it onto the target. Here you can imagine the same thing, 5 different fields coming from 5 directions and all focusing on the treatment target, which is the prostate. And you can see that we have improved from a box to a more of a circle. So it's a little bit more focused, a little bit less dose of radiation to the normal organs nearby. And the same thing, you can bring in any number of beams from different directions, all converging on the prostate or the target. And you will keep improving the amount of radiation going to the target and reducing that to the normal organs. Okay, so that's the first technological advance, 3D conformal radiation. Now, on to the next advancement, which is intensity modulated radiation therapy. What it is multi-leaf of heavy lead beams that you can see that shapes the shape of the beam to take the form of the tumor, okay? So multiple lead leaflets called multi-leaf collimators that are dynamic, so they can move and take the shape of the tumor. And now you don't have a uniform beam coming in. You have a beam that is coming that already took the shape of the tumor from that direction. So here is a IMRT beam arrangement for treating the prostate cancer. So notice in the previous 3D conformal, the inside of each of the beam is uniform. So there is uniform in color, it's all green. So there is all uniform amount of radiation coming in through the beams, right? But now with IMRT, they are not uniform anymore. There is different colors. So it is, each of the beams took the shape of the prostate from that direction. And the result is not just a circle, but you're seeing the concavity. You're seeing that the radiation is bending here. So the less radiation is going to the rectum. Again, more conformal focused to the prostate. So that's intensity modulated radiation therapy, okay? And I have a video that will demonstrate how the intensity modulated radiation therapy works. So you have a patient on the table. This is the gantry that delivers the radiation. Built into the gantry is these multi-leaf collimators that are moving, taking the shape of the tumor from that direction and delivering the radiation. And then the gantry moves to a different direction. And this is how it painted the tumor from one angle. And now it's moving to another angle. So there's another beam, delivers the radiation again with the leaflets moving. And at the end, you have the delivery of the IMRT, again, fairly focused, fairly conformal radiation to the prostate, reducing the radiation to the normal organs nearby. So next advancement after IMRT is Arc IMRT. So you can imagine that we are limited with IMRT where it just goes, stops, delivers radiation. So the number of beams that can be delivered is limited. However, if the gantry moves in a continuous arc and keeps changing the leaflets, taking the shape of the tumor from that angle in a seamless fashion, you will have infinite number of beams coming from each direction. And the result is a lot more conformality of the radiation from infinite beams. And here's a quick video to demonstrate how that works. So here we are treating a tumor that is around the spine. You can see both of the kidneys on each side. And the gantry is moving. As it is moving continuously, it is delivering the radiation, painting the tumor, and the leaflets are moving at the same time in a completely seamless fashion. And the result is, again, the red hot high dose onto the tumor, but very low minimal dose to the surrounding organs like the kidney or the bowels. The level of that radiation is a little bit higher than the background dose of radiation, well below the tolerance of those organs, so you will not have any side effects from those, whereas the tumor will be completely ablated with more than 90% accuracy. So that's the Arc IMRT technology. So the next thing in the development of technology is image-guided radiation. So you have developed all this technology to focus the radiation, but how do you know what you're treating? How do you know it is going to the right place? So in comes image-guided radiation therapy. So what we do is, here you have the standard gantry. Onto that gantry, we mount these two arms. One is a radiation X-ray source, and the other one is a detector. And what it does is, as the gantry is going around the patient delivering the radiation, it is taking a set of X-rays which generates a CT scan for us. And in real time, we are looking at the tumor and making sure that the tumor is getting the radiation. With this, we can now reach almost millimeter accuracy in terms of seeing the tumor and delivering the radiation to the tumor. So that's image-guided radiation therapy. Again, another add-on to IMRT and Arc IMRT and 3D conformal radiation. So then the next issue is, what do you do when you have a tumor like this that you can see on the lung and it is moving, right? Now you have a target that is moving, and this is not just one place. Anywhere you can imagine around the lung or the abdomen, there will be motion of the tumor. Here is an example to show you that kidneys also move quite a bit with radiation, with the breathing. And if there was a tumor on the kidney, we would have to account for that motion. So it's targeting a moving target, right? So how do we account for that? First answer is like what you're seeing. What you're seeing is a 4D CT, a 4-dimensional CAT scan that allows us to capture the motion and record the motion of the tumor. So that's already the first step. And then there are multiple steps we can take, multiple different technology we can combine to treat a target that is moving. And here is one of them, which is tumor tracking or tumor gating. So what we do is we do this continuous X-rays while we are delivering the radiation that allows us to track the motion, and the whole gantry moves with the tumor, and the tumor is always getting the focused radiation. So this is one of the technologies that allows us to track the tumor. There are other technologies available as well that I did not have the time to go into more details. So with that, now we are ready to do stereotactic radiation or SABR. And another advancement on all of those technologies is the use of a stereotactic body frame that brings the coordinates much closer to the patient's body and the tumor. And now it allows us to do millimeter accuracy. And the result is that we are able to deliver an ablative tumor killing dose with more than 90% chance of completely getting rid of the tumor, with minimal toxicity or collateral damage to the nearby organs, all done in very convenient 1 to 5 treatment settings. And it is, as I said, convenient, cost-effective, and completely non-invasive. So here you have a tumor seated deep within the thorax next to multiple critical organs like spinal cord, the tracheas, the esophagus. And even with that, we're still able to give a very high ablative dose of radiation using SABR. At UT Southwestern, we have multiple state-of-the-art technologies, and there is actually more newer technologies that are being developed and obtained at UT Southwestern to deliver these very high ablative dose of focal radiation or stereotactic radiation to the tumors. We have had multiple NIH and state and federal level funding to advance our research and to perform clinical trials for the application of SABR to multiple sites of the tumors, including kidney cancer. So that was my introduction to stereotactic radiation in general. So now on to what we are doing in applying this stereotactic radiation for kidney cancer patients, starting with the primary kidney cancer. So with American Cancer Society funded phase 2 clinical trial, we completed this trial with enrollment of 16 patients with primary kidney cancer. All of the patients, we first confirmed the tumor with a biopsy. Then we treated with the stereotactic ablative radiation of 3 to 5 treatments. And then a year later, we biopsied the tumor to confirm whether the tumors were eradicated. And of course, we did CAT scans or MRIs to show that the tumors were responding or shrinking. And the result was 100% of those tumors were cured with the stereotactic radiation. So that's our application of SABR for primary kidney cancer. And we are not just one group. There are multiple studies that have been completed. Many are retrospective. Ours was a prospective trial with a biopsy confirmation, which not many have done. But here with an international group, with a consortium, we looked into 26 other studies in this meta-analysis where we looked at 383 tumors in the kidney that was treated with SABR with a median size of 4.6 centimeters. And then I know this is a busy slide, but to summarize that, the overall or weighted control rates or cure rates with SABR has been 97.2%. And this with an average of 1.5% rate of grade 3 to 4 toxicity. So high grade toxicities has been really, really very minimal. And that's one of the strengths of the stereotactic ablative radiation therapy. So that's primary kidney cancer. Now on to the metastatic kidney cancer. So in metastatic kidney cancer setting, we now remember that in metastatic settings with radiation, we are targeting one of the tumors and we are talking about the control rates. We are not talking about the overall cure rates. We're talking about the control rates, right, of what we are radiating, because the radiation's effect on the other non-radiated sites is something that I'll talk about later. So we reported our experience of treating 175 kidney cancer that has metastasized to multiple organs and treated that with SABR. And we reported a local control rate of 91%. And again, no reported greater than grade 3 or high grade side effects. Now, on the next setting, you can actually cure metastatic kidney cancer if it is oligometastatic. So it's only few sites of metastasis, 1 to 3 or 5 sites of metastasis. And we can treat all of them with SABR and try to cure the patient. And we have done that. We recently reported our outcome from 47 patients where we treated 65 lesions. And again, local control rate has been 91%. So whatever we radiated, we controlled it or eradicated the tumor with more than 90% accuracy. But how many of those patients did we really cure? Because these patients eventually develop other sites of metastasis, right? So here is a swimmer's plot. On the x-axis, you have the months of since the diagnosis of how many months we have controlled the tumor. And each of the bar represents a swimmer or a patient. And the farther they can swim is the farther we are able to control their cancer with radiation. Each of the yellow bars here shows radiation and the number in them shows how many sites we have treated with SABR. And all the asterisks at the end are patients that are still not progressed or still not have started the systemic therapy. So essentially these patients are cured, and there is about 40% of the patients that we were able to cure just with stereotactic ablative radiation. And on an average 15 months, we were able to control their cancer and postpone the systemic therapy. And as you're aware, systemic therapy has multiple side effects that impacts the quality of life for the patients, whereas stereotactic radiation has no quality of life impact. and you're really living your daily life. So this is one of the powers of stereotactic radiation for oligometastatic patients. And for many patients, we can cure them. Others, we can control their cancer for over a year. So moving on now, to bring oligometastatic treatment with SABR to the forefronts of standard of care, we completed a phase 2 clinical trial that we're about to report our outcomes, and the outcome is very similar to these results that I just presented. And now we're working with cooperative groups and NCI to design a randomized phase 3 clinical trial to compare it head-to-head with systemic therapies. And that we will eventually make the stereotactic radiation as a standard of care for metastatic kidney cancer patients. So now the next thing is side effects, or perhaps we should call it side benefits of SABR. And this is where the immune modulatory properties of radiation comes in. And did you know that this focused radiation can also stimulate immune system against and educate the immune system against the tumor? So take this scenario where a patient has 3 sites of metastasis, and we treat one site with radiation and that responds or disappears. But in sporadic cases, we have also seen that by doing that, there is response to the non-radiated sites in the body. And this is called the abscopal effect of radiation that is known to be immune mediated. This has been seen sporadically only in case reports. And the mechanism of that, as we understand it, is radiation acts as a cancer vaccine. It kills the tumor cells. Here, radiation is killing the tumor cells, but also at the same time, it induces an alarm in the body where the immune system that surveils all over with cells like dendritic cells will be recruited to the dying tumor. They will then educate the killer cells, which is T cells or NK cells of the body, cells of the immune system that then can go and float around and kill tumors throughout the body. So even in micrometastatic setting, where we cannot see the tumor with the scans, but the immune system can find those and eradicate them. And that's how we think the radiation induces an immune response to the tumor. And because of this property of radiation that we have discovered, in preclinical models and noticed in some sporadic abscopal response cases, we think that strategic combination of SABR with immunotherapy can enhance the outcome or efficacy of immunotherapy. Now here is an example of a kidney cancer patient on a clinical trial that we have radiated their primary kidney site. And this patient also had 1 lung metastasis. And this is the time after the primary radiation away from this site. We noticed that initially there was an growth of this metastasis, but subsequently it completely disappeared. And this patient now is 4 years out and still completely cured from kidney cancer. We biopsied this mass at this time, and the biopsy showed that there is a significant high infiltration of immune cells attacking the tumor at this time. And that actually is the inflammation that made the tumor look a little bit bigger after the radiation of a distant site. So there is an example of an abscopal response from radiation directly. Now, you know that immunotherapy for cancer treatment is currently hot. You have seen improved overall survival with 1-year survival rates on the rates of 40% for multiple different tumors. In the case of kidney cancer, you know the approval of ipilimumab and nivolumab, and the response rate, even in the long-term outcomes, has been up to 40%, with a cure rate that is on the rate of 5 to 10%. And you do understand that immunotherapy by no means is a home run. People are living longer, but majority are not cured. And the toxicity levels of grade 3 or higher toxicities can be on the order of 60 to 70%. So by no means this is a home run. So what do we do next to improve the outcome of immunotherapy? And the answer is to understand their mechanism better, to avoid overreactive immune responses, to reduce the toxicity, and most importantly, to have a trigger that can direct the immune stimulation towards the tumor. So all these immunotherapies are non-specific. They're stimulating the immune system, but the immune system does not know where to go. As a result, they also go after normal tissues that results into toxicity, and they also have difficulty finding the tumor. So if you add a trigger, which we think is SABR, can be the trigger to direct the body's immune system towards the tumor. SABR induces multiple immune alarming mechanism, including the tumor DNA sensing, that eventually can lead to an innate and adaptive immune response and activate T cells that can fight cancer, that when you combine with immunotherapy, it can amplify that response further. Here is a preclinical study where we implanted prostate tumors into mice and randomized the mice in 5 different groups, 1 receiving the cancer vaccine, 1 receiving no treatment, empty cancer vaccine, so control, radiation therapy alone, and then radiation with the cancer vaccine. And what we noticed is that while the controls did not have a response and the cancer vaccine itself has mild response, so is radiation. But when we combined it with radiation and the cancer vaccine, we cured 60% of the mice, and 40% also had a significant response. And here is an example of anesthetized mice with showing the actual tumor. Notice that I carefully remove the identity of the mice. You never can be careful enough from the HIPAA police. You never know where they are. But here is a graph showing what they look like. And this has been published in multiple journals by now. So, we at UTSouthwestern have initiated multiple SABR trials, I standing for the immunotherapy, SABR standing for the stereotactic ablative radiation. As far back as 2013, for kidney cancer, we started a trial in 2013, also for IL-2 combining with SABR. The RAD-VAX trial headed by Dr. Hans Hammers was completed in our institution and presented in ASCO, that improved the response of EP-Nivo to from 40 to 60% by adding the SABR. And multiple other SABR trials in other settings are currently in the planning. So this brings us to my concluding slide. So where is the future of cancer treatment for kidney cancer is going? So the future is in further advancing the technology for SABR, and that of course happens with research. Applying SABR for the curative treatment of primary kidney cancer, integrate SABR to cure or delay the systemic therapy for metastatic kidney cancer, and particularly oligometastatic settings. And then successfully integrating SABR with immunotherapy to bring in that tumor-specific trigger that, 1, improves the outcome of immunotherapy or efficacy, but also reduces its side effects. And all of that, of course, happens with multiple clinical trials, both clinical, translational, and basic science research and physics research that we are continuously doing here at UTSouthwestern. And with that, what we hope to achieve in the future is that the abscopal effect of radiation will become routine and not sporadic. With that, I will stop my talk and take questions. Thank you for listening.
All right, let's see. Well, we already have a few questions. Let's see here. The first question comes from Deb. She's asking, are there body sites where SBRT is perhaps most difficult and so not recommended in the oligomet setting? Near bowel?
Good question. So it actually is a moving target. So in terms of the answer I give you now may change rapidly. So at this time, there's almost no site that we cannot treat with SABR. Even in the abdominal site, I mean, I treat routinely sites in the abdomen where there is lymph nodes in the abdomen or even tumors on the kidney. So that being said, if a tumor is within the bowels and wrapped around by the bowel, that may become a little bit more difficult. Again, there are more technologies that are being developed that will change that. But that's what I would say, that there is almost no site that we cannot treat successfully with stereotactic radiation. And that is also going to be improving as we go forward.
And Dr. Mahmood is asking, is the immune boosting effect present only with SABR or with conventional techniques of radiation therapy as well?
It's a very good question. So remember that the tumors, they travel to the nearby lymph nodes, and lymph nodes is a part of the immune organ, and that's where surveillance takes place. So what happens with conventional radiation, the two issues that happen is when you're radiating the tumor, because it's not focused, it's also radiating the lymph nodes, and you're hurting the immune organ where surveillance can take place, which does not happen with stereotactic radiation. You have an intact lymph node to do the surveillance. The second thing is with conventional radiation, recall that it is many number of weeks. So what happens is you kill the tumor with one radiation, you recruit those immune cells, but then you bring in the next dose of radiation and you kill those immune cells, right? Along with the tumor. So now you have hampered the initiation of the immune response. With stereotactic radiation, we are delivering very limited number of radiations, and oftentimes we're spacing them apart. In fact, we now started a newer form of radiation that I did not talk about, called pulsar. In the pulsar, we do the same SABR radiation, but now we space it out 2 weeks to mimic the vaccine schedule. So we give one radiation, we let the immune cells come in and dendritic cells, and then let them travel out to start to the lymph nodes to start educating the body's immune cells. And then 2 weeks later, we bring in another dose of another pulse of SABR to do a boosting effect. So because of all of these properties, we think that SABR has a lot more immune stimulating properties than conventional radiation.
Thank you. It's amazing what y'all are doing with radiation therapies. Linda asks, would you try SBRT first before any surgery?
We have a clinical trial now, which what we look at is the IVC thrombus trial. I showed that abscopal effect picture or coming from the IVC thrombus trial. So in the IVC thrombus trial, we give radiation to a kidney tumor that has traveled into the vein, into the large vein, the inferior vena cava. And one of the reasons we do that is because we learned that a lot of these patients after the surgery comes back with metastatic disease because the vein has blood flowing through it all the time that takes the tumor cells to other parts of the body. So in this trial, the goal is to give the radiation before the surgery and kill off those tumor cells, and then the surgeons remove all the tumor, and then you reduce the chance of metastasis. At the same time, of course, with radiation, you're doing immune stimulation. But there are other trials that are in the development now where large kidney tumors that needs to be surgerized, we give radiation or SABR before the surgery to induce an immune response, and at the same time combine that with immunotherapy. And those trials are being designed right now.
Wow. So as of right now, probably not, but in the future, that's the hope, I suppose, that we would be able to target it before surgery.
Correct. And not necessarily to replace surgery, but to target it before surgery to induce an immune stimulation in the metastatic setting. In the setting of where the tumor is localized and small tumors, like I showed you the data for tumors 5 centimeters or less, we can actually cure this tumor with SABR by itself with accuracies more than 90%, as I showed you in the data.
Irina asks, how many times can one lesion be radiated?
That's a good question. It also depends on the location and how much of the smaller doses of radiation went to the normal surrounding tissues. So if a tumor is first treated with conventional, it is definitely possible to do stereotactic radiation in the future. Now, if you have done stereotactic radiation up front, and with that, as I said, the chance of the tumor coming back to the same site is very low. But if it did come back and there wasn't, too many critical organs nearby, it may be possible to do the stereotactic radiation. Again, that, of course, will have to be decided case by case.
Dr. Mahmood had a follow-up question. Don't the immune-related side effects increase when SABR is done along with immunotherapy? Is there a synergistic effect?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what I showed in my animal experiment, where when we combined the cancer vaccine with radiation, there was a synergistic effect. The effect was much more than a simple additive effect. I could actually quickly go back to that here. In this graph, I showed the dotted line is an additive effect, but what we see actually is a synergistic effect, which is a lot more. And this is because the interaction. So the radiation's immune effect gets amplified, and the immunotherapy's immune effect gets amplified. What we think is, the radiation is really pointing the direction of the immune stimulation towards the tumor. And what you have is an amplified synergistic effect, absolutely.
A couple more questions, and then we'll call it a day here. But Deb had a follow-up question. She said, perhaps it's controversial. Why do many medical oncologists today start with systemic therapy, even if SBRT could potentially be helpful? Will the phase 3 trial change that practice?
That's exactly the goal. A lot of medical oncologists, they are not aware of the capabilities of stereotactic radiation, and this is why we continue to do research and publish our research to make them aware. But until you have done a large randomized clinical trial to show that we are changing the course of the cancer for those patients, this will not become a standard of care. And that's exactly what we're doing. That being said, there is a place for everything, right? So if you have a patient with widespread metastatic disease, there really isn't any role for radiation there, because radiation still is a local therapy. That patient needs to start on systemic therapy right away. And then if the tumors respond, remember with ipilimumab and nivolumab, there is 40% response. If the tumor responds, and then 1 or 2 sites start progressing, we call that oligoprogressive cancer. That setting, yes, we can bring in the radiation to take out those resistant sites that are resistant to systemic therapy. In fact, we're about to publish our phase 2 trial where we have extended the duration of systemic therapy just by doing that, treating resistant sites. But patients that I showed with oligometastasis that come back after their primary kidney surgery 1 or 2 years later with only 1 or 2 sites of metastasis, those patients sometimes can be cured with radiation, with stereotactic radiation, and those patients should not be going on systemic therapy because you're now doing unnecessary side effects from systemic therapy, but giving a palliative treatment. Remember, systemic therapy is essentially a palliative treatment, whereas a curative treatment option is available by eradicating those sites. But realistically, not all patients are purely oligometastatic. They have other sites of micrometastasis. And in those cases, we showed the data that we were able to control their cancer for almost 15 months before they do need eventually the systemic therapy. So these are all integration of the radiation with systemic therapy for the optimal treatment for kidney cancer patients that we here do in a multidisciplinary basis. So we discuss patients with the medical oncologists and surgeons, and we decide what would be the best sequence or course of treatment for the patients.
Wow. And that really underscores how important clinical trials are in order to make them a standard of practice. And so our next kidney cancer conversation, just a quick segue, is all about clinical trials. And so we have Shalom Sign. She's a project manager at the Center for Information and Study on Clinical Research Participation. On June 16th, she'll be having a talk on clinical trials. So if you're interested, you can check out that on our website and register for that event. We've got one more question and then we'll let you go, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time. Raquibul asks, are insurance companies paying for any of these treatments? And if so, how easy/difficult is it to get paid? And what type of reimbursement are we looking at?
So it's a good question. Remember that stereotactic radiation is 3 to 5 treatments only. So the actual cost is 1/5 or more or less to the patient than the conventional 7, 8, 9 week long radiation treatment. So the cost overall to the healthcare system is much less. And then stereotactic radiation, the way it's not quite the same approval process that it goes through with FDA as in other medical drugs. So stereotactic radiation is approved as a device. So as a device, we can apply it, or it is up to us to prescribe it to the patient. So think of it as an offline medication that is being applied, right? So it is approved. It is approved with the insurances, and we have not had any problems with the coverage. And so most of the time, patients do not actually have to worry about this not being covered. We'll take care of that.
More affordable and more effective treatments on the way. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Dr. Hannan, thank you so much for your time. If anyone missed any part of this conversation, then you'll be able to find it on our website starting tomorrow. So check us out at jnfkidneycancer.org or on our Facebook page. You'll find that we have tons of videos on kidney cancer that are available on our website. So thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Scott, thank you very much for having me. It has been a pleasure. Okay.
We'll have to do it again sometime. Bye.
Bye.